This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. K-State swine nutritionist Jason Woodworth and PhD student at K-State Mikayla Spinler kick off today's show by discussing precision feeding technology and blending diets for sows and lactation. Continuing today's show is K-State's Terry Griffin, and he's joined by John West and Darren Hofmann to preview KARTA's Kansas Agricultural Technologies Conference happening in January. From this month's K-State Garden Hour, K-State Research and Extension Horticulture Agent for the Golden Prairie District, Ryan Engel, completes the show as he covers basics for starting your own bee colony. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Thursday show discussing precision feeding technology. And then to talk about it, we're joined by K-State swine nutritionist Jason Woodworth and PhD student in animal sciences and industry here at Kansas State University, Mikayla Spinler. Mikayla, Jason, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Mikayla, this is a project you're working on, and so what are you working on when it comes to precision feeding technology?
Yeah, so this is a project I've been working on for probably the last year in my PhD program. So really when we think about precision feeding, we think about feeding that individual sow. So instead of feeding that whole barn, we're going to break it down to that individual sow level.
And working kind of during their lactation period, was that your focus?
Yep, so my work was specifically during lactation.
Mikayla, how are you looking at blending diets and that feeding technology when thinking about lactating sows?
Yep. So typically in commercial swine production, we feed one diet during lactation. So regardless of that sow's parity or how many piglets she has in her litter, we feed her a single diet. So instead what we did, we compared feeding that single diet to feeding a blend of a high and low lysine diet. So we specifically looked at lysine intake and feeding to a specific lysine requirement based on that sow's parity and then the number of piglets that she has in her litter.
How did that change on the amount of lysine you are feeding?
Yep. So when we think about that sow's requirement, so milk production will increase over lactation. So as lactation increases, milk production and lysine requirements will increase. So over that lactation period, her lysine intake is going to increase.
So what was that high lysine number and that low lysine number?
Yep. So the blend of our two diets. So we were at a 1.10 SID lysine and a 0.60.
Why did you take the time to do this project?
We did this project because if we think about the future could be feeding that individual sow. So this is some of the groundwork that's going to lay down. How do we feed that sow? How do we find her requirement? And how do we physically do that on the farm? How do we blend these two diets? And what does that look like day to day?
And a big part of this project was technology. And Jason, the KSU swine farm has some pretty cool technology.
Yeah, we sure think so. And so it really is nice. And we've had the opportunity here at K-State, as well as some of our partner farms out in the industry, to be able to utilize some new technology that's been brought out that allows us to be able to do these blending at the level of the sow, above her farrow and crate. And so the nice thing about that is we've been able to work with one of our past graduates, Hyatt Frobos, and his company, Gestal, to be able to provide some of this technology and allow us to be able to do a better job of feeding these sows and have a little fun doing it, as Mikayla can definitely attest to.
And you started this project at K-State, but then you moved on in the summer with a larger quantity of pigs?
Yep. So we did 2 smaller pilot studies here at our K-State swine farm just to really learn, one, how do we precision feed these sows? How do we use this feed blending technology? But then we knew it was going to be important to take this to a commercial sow farm. So I spent the summer in Iowa at Brenneman Pork on a sow farm doing this research, and we had roughly over 700 sows on our test.
And did you find it really important to go to that bigger farm?
Yep. So we definitely wanted to go to that bigger farm, one, to get a large number of sows, to see how this looked on a commercial farm and day to day. Is it feasible to put these sows on these different blends and feed these different diets? And how does that affect the farm crews day to day to make sure it doesn't change what they're doing?
That's a really important part of our program here at K-State, is being able to utilize the facilities we have here at the university to do some preliminary testing. Once we vet out some of the concepts, we have a lot of partnerships out in the industry, just like we had with Brenneman's this summer, that allows us to get on a larger farm under commercial conditions and really make sure that what we're finding at the university level also translates into the commercial farms as well.
So with that combination of technology and feeding blends, what did you see it impacting?
We took a look at a variety of different measurements. So a big one that we looked at was sow body weight, to make sure that by feeding that lower lysine level, that those sows weren't losing more weight. During lactation, it wasn't affecting their time to return to estrus. So we found no differences in sow body weight. And we also know that a big one for producers is going to be weaning weight. So we looked at those weaning weights of those piglets, and we found no differences in weaning weights when we fed that standard one diet through lactation versus our feed blending.
Why might producers care about this then?
One of the big reasons that this is really cool technology for producers is because it actually can save them money on feed cost. So by feeding that blend of our low and high lysine diet, we were able to decrease feed cost while still getting the same weaning weight.
Is this changing the feed blend every day, every few days, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so what we did is before we went into the trial is we looked at expected feed intake of these sows. So based on their expected feed intake, we were able to calculate the blend of our low and high lysine diet to get to that target lysine intake. So that was done before the trial. And then at our studies at the home farm, the K-State farm, I analyzed feed intake each day and lysine intake, and then changed those blends manually every day.
So Mikayla's correct. She's maybe not admitting fully how much time and effort she put into changing these on a daily basis to really track and meet exactly what that sow needs each day. But that's also the nice thing about this technology, because I can assume in next generations that that'll become automated. Because in essence, we have a computer above each sow that we're able to feed these animals. And with Just All, I'm sure they'll have that opportunity in the future where it'll take all the automation into account right here, and it won't be so time dependent on a daily basis like Mikayla went through.
Yeah, we obviously know that swine producers don't have the time every day to sit at a computer and analyze lysine intake. So this is kind of laying the groundwork for that process to be fully automated in the future.
So hopefully at some point be able to have like a formula for producers to use?
Yep. So basically what the goal would be in the future is that computer will analyze that sow's feed intake. And if she's not meeting her lysine target, or if she's above her lysine target, it's going to adjust the blend based on her actual feed intake.
I could imagine that in the future, the farmer will place a sow in the crate, and then once she farrows, that producer will put in her parity, how old she is, and the number of piglets that she's nursing, and then the computer will automatically adjust the feeding blends to be able to target her specific level of performance and what her needs will be.
Sounds like some really interesting technology that could possibly be coming with the mixture of feeds, and something important to producers. And something important to a lot of producers also is sustainability. And so did you see any impacts with your research on that?
Yeah, so we looked at nitrogen excretion specifically. So we were able to estimate the amount of nitrogen that these sows were excreting during lactation. And when we fed that blend of that high and low lysine diet, we actually decreased nitrogen excretion of those sows.
So what that means really is that we're more efficient in our utilization of the nitrogen that we provided to these animals. And this, for me, is a really big concept as well, too, because sustainability at one point maybe was just a buzzword people threw out, but it's something that we'll all be dealing with from here on out, and especially from the level of animal production. And this set of trials that Mikayla did is a really nice step in allowing us to determine and find ways to be more sustainable with our feeding practices on our swine farms.
So for swine producers down the road, what do you really hope that they can take home from this?
Yeah, so I think the big thing with this study is that we can precision feed sows. We can allow those sows to do more with less, basically, and decrease that feed cost of those sows.
Ultimately, it's a good way to help producers become more profitable, but also be better stewards of the feed and the nutrients that they're providing to those animals on a daily basis as well.
If people would like to read more or possibly listen to more about this subject, where can they do that?
Yeah, the first place we'd direct people to would be to our K-State Swine Nutrition Team's website, and you can find that at ksuswine.org. On that website, you'll be able to find all of the reports that we've conducted from Mikayla's trials, but all the others. There's also, in November, we had our K-State Swine Day, and so you have all the recordings of the videos, of the presentations that we made, some of the research that Mikayla conducted and what we talked about today would be located there as well.
Mikayla, Jason, I appreciate you both taking the time to join us today and share with us some information about precision feeding technology in the swine industry.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
That was K-State swine nutritionist Jason Woodworth, and he was joined by PhD student in animal sciences and industry at K-State, Mikayla Spinler. In today's show notes on agtoday.net, I will link Jason's presentation from KSU Swine Day, as well as the publications revolving around this work. You can also find them by going to ksuswine.org. Again, that is ksuswine.org. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by USDA's Gary Crawford and Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack as they discuss if a change in the Mexican administration will bring on a change in Mexico's policy on imports of genetically modified corn.
The current administration in Mexico continues to stick by its plan to ban imports of U.S. genetically modified corn starting January 1st of 2024. That is the policy of the current Mexican administration. However,
on September 30th, that administration leaves office.
Which could change things, maybe. According to Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, he told reporters Sunday there's no scientifically based reason for Mexico to ban GM corn, and that trade ought to be based on science. And on that score,
the two candidates for president, the leading candidate is a scientist. My hope and belief is that as a result of a new administration, they will take a look at the science, take a look at the fact that they are reliant on the U.S. for yellow corn, and that the relationship with the U.S. is important.
He said he made that point again when he met with his Mexican counterpart during the just concluded UN Climate Conference in Dubai. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but stick around because we have more for you ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show now discussing a conference that the Kansas Ag Research and Technology Association is putting on in January. And to talk about it, we're joined by K-State Precision Ag economist Terry Griffin and President and Vice President of KARTA, President Darren Hofmann, and Vice President John West. Terry, John, Darren, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So, Terry, as we're talking about the Kansas Ag Research and Technology Association, what is this conference?
So this year, I think, marks the 25th year. Of course, we skipped a few during the pandemic, but when this group started 25 years ago, it was all about how do we use ag technology, precision ag, to do things that benefit the farm. And in particular, there's a focus on-farm experimentation where farmers evaluate products and rates of inputs on their own farm under their own management style. And it's evolved to where we do that. And we'll also bring in a group of out-of-state speakers to maybe give us a different perspective. And we've been known to encourage a controversial perspective to come into the meetings as well.
And Darren, kind of what are some of those main topics for this conference?
For this year coming up, probably the one I'm most looking forward to since I'm a farmer is Elizabeth Hawkins out of Ohio State. She's going to be talking about variable rate prescriptions in the aspect of did it work or not? Did you do it right? And how to learn from actually doing it on your farm yourself of, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? And where do I go from here? Another one we're going to have returning this year is David Bullock. He's from Illinois University. He does extensive research with farmers across the entire nation, I believe, and having farmers give them a map of a field. They put a variable rate prescription on it, whether it be fertilizer or seeding, and they build a map. They send it back to the farmer. The farmer does it, and they send the yield data back to him, and they're able to get a very large pool of data from across the state to get more research done quickly in a shorter amount of time versus an individual farmer doing it once a year, and he can get a a big pool of data and get some really good results out of that. John, you want to touch on the next one?
Well, I would say, mainly, as Terry mentioned, the roots of our organization really kind of revolve around, variable rate technology and yield mapping and things. But one of the cool things about our group, I think, is that we've kind of transitioned as technology has transitioned over the years. In surveying our growers last year, see and spray technology was higher in their minds, drone technology, spraying. So really today, I think, probably what's at the forefront of most growers' minds is autonomy and, things that are helping them deal with maybe a shortage of labor or time and resources. And, really, I think that's probably some of the most exciting things that I think we have on the docket for this year is like with Salinftech. Forgive me if I mispronounce it, but, some robotics, obviously Rantizo and drone spraying and hopefully as well as some local folks that have some, boots on the ground type experiences with those technologies. So really looking forward to the conference here in January.
Is there also going to be an opportunity for a trade show at this event? Yes,
we've got several lined up already, some previous ones that have been committed to KARTA, and we really appreciate their dedication to the organization with sponsoring us, and we're hoping to have some new ones come as well.
Really an opportunity then for producers, but then maybe even people in kind of ag business to learn a lot here?
So historically, the group that comes in are technology-minded farmers, but that could be someone that is considering adopting technologies for the first time, and a lot of times it is people who've been using, they have 20 years of yield monitor data. So they've got both ends of the spectrum. And, that being said, one of the biggest benefits I've seen is the hallway conversations about, groups of farmers getting together and sharing ideas and what worked and what did not. And that's kind of evolved into our on-farm experiment. We provide little mini grants to encourage farmers to follow through with the research projects, and then they present those to the group. And in doing so, it's, these are things that worked, but also here are some things that did not work, which are maybe more important than those that did.
Darren, as someone who is a farmer, what does this conference provide to you?
Well, like what Terry was touching on with the research, that's something that's been a part of KARTA since the beginning. Research was a very high priority of what the conference was about. So it's always great to hear from other farmers across the state of things they're trying, things they're doing. Is it working? Because we hear this information results from companies. Well, you kind of always take it with a grain of salt because it's always going to favor their products. Rarely does their product lose in that trial. But with farmers with a more honest opinion, hey, this worked, this didn't, or this is something I would do differently. This year, just some of the topics I know we're planning to have Tyler Lund with Varus. Varus Technology has been a part of KARTA from the beginning as well with his dad. He's going to be doing some different soil sampling techniques and sensing systems. He's going to actually do more than just a short presentation on that. Most of the farmers that give the presentation after the research grants is, 5 to 15 minutes. Most of them probably under 10. I'm hoping to be able to share on Pivot Bio, some research I did on that with corn. Another one is some different nitrogen stabilizers, comparing different ones. And another gentleman from Oklahoma who's been a part of KARTA, he's still comparing a couple different in-furrow fungicides and using looking at imagery to base for nitrogen recommendations for wheat, if they need more on, or did they have it just right. So we're going to have a good list this year of different research projects that are going to be presented this year at the conference.
Just wanted to add to Darren and Terry's comments is one of the things that I appreciate most about the conference is just the networking opportunity, kind of a fellowship between, some of the longtime members. But like on our opening day of the conference, we'll have, kind of our evening beer and bowl session with the keynote speaker. And it's really an opportunity for, members, growers, those in attendance to really shape the evening, so to speak. And it really always evolves into, some really great discussion. And that's one of the things that I always look forward to most about the conference.
Who would you encourage to take the time to attend this conference?
Personally, I don't feel like we've done enough outreach to students. So I really want to do more outreach to, the young professionals, so to speak, or the young folks that are, possibly just going back to the farm and they're going to be those guys that are, possibly in KARTA today and as well as 20 years from now. So that's my take.
With KARTA, we try to, as a board, to come up with a topic spread, stuff that's currently relevant, and stuff that may be further out or that may never even hit the farm. So if you're kind of on the if you're a farmer that's not afraid to try things or not sure which things to try, it's a great way an opportunity to learn from other people's mistakes. I'm always someone that loves learning from other people's mistakes, mishaps, things that have worked out well in the past. So it's to me, it's a great way to come and see, hey, what's coming up? What's looking like something that we're going to be able to adapt on our own farm, especially with, we're not a extremely large farm, so we don't have the funding to play with like some of the big guys can. So it's great to have like K-State involved in other universities as well, because they have the research grants and money to play with some of these technologies to find out, hey, this is a great thing or not. Like my dad, for instance, he started coming years ago. That's how we got into just using auto steer, and even yield mapping was with the auto steer. It was a no-brainer. With section control and the sprayer, it was a no-brainer. That was something that was going to pay for itself very, very quickly. So we're excited with the setup we've got this year with some of the topics with See and Spray technology and drones, because that's what's coming. I don't think it's going away. It seems to be getting a little more affordable every year, and there's more companies figuring out ways to do it more efficiently and effectively and financially affordable for the farmer.
I guess I've always thought of KARTA as trying to bring a little piece of info ag to Kansas. We try to bring a lot of leading edge technology to Kansas growers and sprinkle in some bleeding edge as well. So that's the way I look at it.
When and where is this conference taking place, and how can people go about maybe registering for it?
So we'll be at the Hilton Garden Inn here in Manhattan. It'll be January 25th and 26th. We'll get started promptly at 8 a.m., I believe, on the morning of the 25th with breakfast and then with speakers throughout the day. Obviously, we'll have our keynote speaker and kind of beer and bull that Thursday evening on the 25th, and probably wrap things up early afternoon on the 26th.
How are people able to get registered for this conference?
To be able to find it, you go to KARTA Online. There's a hyphen in between KARTA and online.org. And then if you click at the top, you can go down to events, and then you can sign up there with our annual conference. And students, they can sign up for $75. That includes both days. That's all the meals. They've got a really good deal. If you're coming as an attendee, it's $275 till the end of the year. But when January 1 hits, it'll go up to $325, and that includes your meals and attending the conference and your membership to the KARTA organization. That the evening before our beer and bull session and before supper, we have our annual business meeting where we conduct business for the next year with awarding money for research grants, and we've got a position for Tyler Ryder's been on the board for a long time. He's deciding to go off, which is well-deserved, and we really appreciate everything he's done for the organization. So we encourage everyone to come and devote the new one in. And Tyler's been the treasurer for several years. We don't want that to scare someone if they're wanting to join the board, if they don't want to be the treasurer. We've had a gentleman on the board who has showed interest in it, but if there's someone who is good at it and wants to, we sure would appreciate that. It's definitely a very key role on the board.
That was President of KARTA, Darren Hofmann, and his Vice President, John West, and they were joined by K-State Precision Ag economist, Terry Griffin. I will link the resources to get registered for this conference in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be back with more ahead.
This is Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. For the December K-State Garden Hour, Beekeeping Basics, How to Start Your Own Colony, K-State Research and Extension Horticulture Agent for the Golden Prairie District, Ryan Engel, covers the steps involved in getting started, from the equipment required to hive placement and caring for a beehive. The entire webinar is available online, but today we have a sampling of some of the things that he discussed, including the fact that bees are social and live in colonies.
A really, really strong colony could have up to 80,000 workers inside of it. So when you start to look at the level or the magnitude of pollination that can occur from the presence of one colony, these bees can really get a lot of work done. And we definitely see that when we look at the economic side of things. Honeybees are known to pollinate around $15 billion worth of crops in the U.S. annually, and that's not even accounting for the U.S. honey market, which is valued at around $900 million annually. Of course, there are a few reasons why we might want to keep honeybees. One could supplement pollination in the landscape. So say you have a large garden or a small orchard, keeping a hive of honeybees around would definitely help to kind of ensure sufficient pollination. Of course, there's honey and wax production, things like candles, beeswax, soaps. There's tons of different things that can be made from beeswax and then sold. Of course, there's also some known medicinal value to honeybee products. So honey probably being one of the oldest known medicines. But even other things, beekeepers collect pollen from their colonies. Even bee stings are utilized by some cultures for some therapeutic value. But ultimately, I think it's really fun to kind of just be involved and observe them. They're a fascinating creature. Plan on budgeting around $600 to start one colony. Now, this will cover the bees themselves and really all the equipment that you're going to need to manage this one colony. So the bees themselves, I would say for the method that we're going to be talking about today, they're going to run you around $150. This is for a package of bees. Beyond that, you need, of course, a hive. There's kind of some convenient ways of purchasing these. You can typically buy an entire hive kit. And what that basically means is all of your boxes will kind of be sold in one lump sum. I would definitely suggest wearing protective equipment. So a suit and gloves costs around $115. And I would definitely do that if this is your first time working with honeybees. We have a couple tools that beekeepers use, at least that you for sure would need to get into the hobby. So really not a lot of money there. And then of course your smoker. I'm sure you guys have seen these before. They run around $40. The one tool that I do want to talk about is the hive tool. I guess you could almost look at it as like the Swiss Army knife of a beekeeper. I mean, you will use this tool for everything. I personally really like the J-hook style hive tool. That little hook is really useful for prying frames out of boxes, and it's kind of just what I see most beekeepers in my area use. They're pretty cheap, I think $6 to $8, and you're definitely going to need these. But today what we're going to be focusing on is a package of honeybees. And the reason why we're focusing on packages is because this is by far the most common way that new beekeepers start colonies. It's also going to be the easiest for you to get your hands on. So to dive into what packages are, a package typically comes with 3 pounds of workers. And if you're curious, that's around 10,000 bees. You get a queen as well. And the queen is shipped in her own little cage. This is done for a few reasons. It kind of isolates the bees from her, but it still allows them to sense her, I suppose. So it comes with bees, a queen, and it also comes with a tin or a can of sugar syrup. And of course, that's used just to kind of get the bees through their transit. You can order these from state bee clubs. If for some reason you're unable to get one through a bee club, there are beekeeping supply companies online that you shouldn't have any trouble finding one of these. Orders for these packages are typically placed in January or February. They need to be placed by then. So I would recommend if you guys are looking at starting a colony, this should be one of the first things that you get figured out. You will receive them anywhere from March through May. It's kind of dependent upon the weather in these southern states where these packages are put together.
That's K-State Research and Extension Horticulture Agent for the Golden Prairie District, Ryan Engel. The December Garden Hour is now available online at hnr.k-state.edu. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.